Hello, everyone. We're just waiting a few minutes for folks to join. Welcome. And if you would like to go into the chat and introduce yourselves, please feel free to do that. We will be recording this webinar, but we haven't started that yet. We're waiting for folks to oh, no, we have started recording. I'm sorry. So we'll be recording this webinar. My name is Tamara Himmerlein. I'm the Director of Local History Services at the Indiana Historical Society. We are a department that works with local heritage organizations all over the state of Indiana. We provide consultations, trainings, virtual site visits. We convene virtual regional and local meetings. Normally we're on the road. Currently we're on the road only delivering and picking up our traveling exhibits. But we are available virtually via email, via phone for any questions or advice you might be seeking. We're happy to help you and work with you in whatever way we can. I want to welcome you to the webinar today. I want to tell you that I will be here as part of the webinar. I'm sort of second chairing Bryce. I will be watching the Q&A and chat for any questions or technological issues that may occur during the webinar. So if you do have any problems, please let me know. Put that in the chat. When you use the chat function, you can chat to one person, you can chat to just the panelists, or you can chat to everyone. If you have questions about the topic, please put those in Q&A, and I will be letting Bryce know so that he can answer those either in the course of the webinar or in our question and answer period at the end. So welcome again, and I'm going to turn it over to Bryce.
Thank you so much, Tamara. I appreciate that. So hello, everyone. Really good to see all of you here. I appreciate you coming to today's webinar. We'll be discussing online fundraising, which is really a growing topic. So for those who might not know me, my name's Bryce Gorman. I'm the fundraising educator for Local History Services at the Indiana Historical Society. And as part of my role, what I do is offer free fundraising workshops, webinars, and consultations. I also manage many functions of the Heritage Support Grant Program, and all of this, including my position, HSG, has been made possible by Lilly Endowment. They decided to renew our funding for the Heritage Support Grant Program, and we are very excited to have started the second iteration of it. So I do want to let you know that when we are finished with the webinar, what we'll do is we will send out a recording. I'll send out a kind of an online fundraising resources sheet. There's a ton of different options, and so there's just not enough time to list them all. So I'll be sending you the links for that. And there will also be a link to the evaluation. We can only make this program better when you tell us what is and isn't working for your needs. So please be as honest as you can. Let us know what you like, what you would need, and what can be helpful. So with that, developing an online fundraising program that works for you. Online fundraising has become a massive topic. And there are a couple things that I'd like to stress before we get into the different areas of online fundraising. I would like to stress that online fundraising, it coordinates with your existing fundraising program. Online fundraising is not there to replace items. It's not either we're going to do an annual fund letter or we're going to do an email, or it's not we're going to do events or we're going to do crowdfunding. No, these exist to complement one another. All online fundraising follows the same principles as traditional fundraising. And in that, what I mean is for every online fundraising option, you are still making your case for support. You are still building relationships. You are still stewarding those who donate to your program. So all of those principles that have come with traditional fundraising, in-person visits, so forth, that still occurs with online fundraising. It just might shift a bit. And I would like to stress online fundraising is beneficial for almost every nonprofit. I say almost because I literally cannot think of a program that could not benefit from it, but I've been proven wrong before. So with that, what do I mean by online fundraising, and what are we going to talk about today? Within online fundraising, I've broken it up into 3 different sections. So there's your website, which is the first stop. And that's going to be one of the most crucial aspects of any online giving program. You will have any external work, any social media will almost always be linked to your website. Within your website, of course, your giving page or giving pages. There are a multitude of options that can work for an organization, and it really depends on what is best for you. And I've lumped digital events under your website because while you might use a program like Eventbrite to do registrations, or you might use, say, this Zoom call would be something that we're using Zoom to communicate, but most of the activity is still occurring because of our own website. That's where the links originated. That's where we're hosting the information afterwards. So I've just lumped it there. Email is often a great way to augment annual fund programming. So it is a great way to do a year-end solicitation or a general solicitation if you have, say, a specific project. Let's say the community foundation has a challenge grant and you need to reach out to your audience very quickly. Email is an outstanding way to do so. Again, these are there to complement your annual fund program. And finally, there are external websites. And I use the term external websites because things like social media, crowdfunding, and there's a couple others that exist out there as well. They are, they're websites where you can have a page or you can have a project, but ultimate control does belong to someone else. So for instance, you have your Twitter feed, or you have your Facebook page, or you might have a Kickstarter project, but they are still within the range of that website. So I just want to break it down into the different areas. I do love throwing out statistics. I could honestly rattle off statistics about fundraising all day, but I do want to put a little context into this, as I don't believe I need to, tell any of you that right now this is an unprecedented time. We are, in the midst of the pandemic. There's no way to determine what fundraising and philanthropy will be like this year or next year. Can we do events next year? I don't know. Will philanthropy dry up, as some people say? I don't know. Will it increase dramatically? I don't know. So this is, like I said, it's unprecedented. So please take these statistics with the, bear in mind that this is the data that we have most recently, and we will adapt as things change. But online giving was 8.7% of total US giving in 2019. That is a growing area. Online fundraising is one of the few areas where you've seen growth almost in every sector, even when other fundraising, major gifts and all corporate philanthropy have been relatively flat. So that totals out to, in 2019, $37 billion. That is a lot of money. The good news for most of us is organizations that that have budgets under $1 million, they saw 14% of their income or their fundraising income come from online gifts. So I think that that's wonderful that they're kind of ahead of the curve there. Our sector, for I believe the bulk of us, arts and culture, they saw some of the largest growth in online fundraising in 2018, which is the last time I have this data. They had 5.5% growth, which far exceeds a lot of other sectors. And if you want to see more of the details, this link down here, qgive.com, the fundraising statistics, I had a blast looking at it. Your results may vary. So another thing that I found fascinating was 47% of donors over the age of 60 are giving online. Typically, there's been this idea that online giving is millennials and Gen Z. But it's really becoming all donors are part of online giving. And I think it's important to remember that. And then finally, this isn't strictly online giving, but I think it's a valuable thing, especially when we talk about the various ways to raise funds like email, crowdfunding, and so forth. 35% of all giving happens in the last 3 months of the year. That is a huge portion. For 1/4 of the year is 35% of all giving. 12% of all giving happens in 3 days. How this relates to online giving, most of that 12% and a growing amount is online. People usually, they feel inclined to give, and rather than write a check, more common, you are seeing people go online to an organization's website and make a donation there. So this is an important time to build our online fundraising programs. Some of the benefits for an online fundraising program would be that there's a multitude of programs and platforms and options for any size. If you are a very small organization run by volunteers on a shoestring budget, you still have a lot of free options that will work with you and work within your needs. There's a lot of organizations or a lot of platforms, pardon me, that have templates and they have guides. So no matter what your experience with web building or fundraising, no matter what your budget, there are options. And there's some on the resource that I'll be sending. Online fundraising is a rapidly growing philanthropic tool. And as I had mentioned earlier, right now, when we have to do all of this digitally, when we can't do face-to-face meetings, and I miss y'all. I love going out to see people. I love traveling around the state, but right now we can't do that. And I know that y'all can't have online, or you can't have physical events. You can't do the same fundraising that you were doing before. Now more than ever, having an online presence for your philanthropic needs is crucial. So this is a great time to be building these programs. Online giving allows you the chance to reach a wider audience. So one of the great things is you can reach beyond your city, town, county, state level to an audience who's interested in whatever you might have to offer. We have seen here at IHS, we've seen more interest in our programming. We've done a lot of live streaming, and we've seen a lot of interest from out of state. And right now, there's no physical barrier between us. So we can reach out to a wider audience, and you can too. And one of the wonderful things about online fundraising is it blends philanthropy into everything. What I mean by that is if you have a social media post on Facebook, you can say how philanthropy is part of the work you do and is part of your story. You can talk about in some of your events, even if it's just live streaming an event that has nothing to do with fundraising, you can mention how important philanthropy is to your organization. So you can keep it at the top of the minds of people who are already engaged with you. And that's the wonderful thing about online fundraising is you can blend those together. There are risks, as always. First thing that I'd like to mention is accessibility for your donors. Online giving is not perfect for everybody, or there's not a one-size-fits-all option. Some people will not be as attracted to a crowdfunding project. Other people may have hesitations towards giving out their credit card information online. Some people want to have that human contact, and like my in-laws, they like writing a check. That's perfectly fine. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. I think what's important is how will your donors be able to connect with your organization? And by that, I would like to stress, especially here in Indiana, there are a lot of areas in the state, especially in rural communities, where high-speed internet is not as it's not as available as here in Indianapolis. And because of that, if you were to have a very big website with a lot of bandwidth, a lot of videos, a lot of very storage heavy materials, very big pictures and so forth, it will take forever to load for someone who doesn't have high speed internet. If you're doing a lot of events through live streaming, it's going to be tougher for them. So what I'm trying to say with that is keep it in mind. As you are thinking about what your audience will want, also keep in mind what is their capacity to interact with you. And then what are their expectations? There's a lot you can do to change, to help this, but online giving is very often not as personal as in-person fundraising. Right now, us being on Zoom, you listening to me on this webinar, it's not going to have that same personal connection as if we were all at a table together talking. And there's just nothing we can do about that at this moment. And then your largest donors, your major donors, the ones who are the biggest supporters, your biggest cheerleaders, a lot of them still expect that personal approach. So there are ways to temper that. You can do Zoom meetings with some of your big donors, kind of one-on-one like this. You can, if you live close to donors, you can always talk to them from a 6-foot distance if that is comfortable for you. But online giving can only do so much. And finally, something that I really want to stress is the need for increased security for online fundraising. It's important that you protect donor data. They are trusting you with their money, but also their information. And you also are putting your own organization's information, out there. So it's important to check with any program that you might work with or any organization about what are the best practices for keeping data secure, passwords, banking information, whatever that is. So it's just an added level of security. Whenever you are ready to start with your online fundraising program, there are some important things to consider. It's important to be aware of the accessibility issues that we had talked about and connectivity. there is an excellent website for website accessibility initiative. It's on the resource that I'll be sending out, but they will give information on how to make your website readable or more accessible for someone who might have issues with any number of vision issues, ways to add, say, closed captioning for videos. So if you do have, say, an aging population or a population that perhaps English is not their first language, there are ways to be more accessible to those audiences. Again, being aware of connectivity issues. So if that is an issue in your area with your audience, maybe offering options that are not as data heavy. And so also consider what resources you need to expand your digital presence. I will fully admit I am not the most computer savvy person. And so if you were to ask me, if you were to say you are building a fundraising website, I could give you a lot of help with the copy, with the wording, the way to frame some of the asks, pictures, things like that. But if I had to do any level of coding or design, I'm not the person to ask. It's just not my specialty. And you might have a lot of people who may be volunteers or board members who have a lot of experience with developing software or have designed their own web page. Maybe they've done some work with business software. They may be able to offer experience with the web design, but not the fundraising. So consider what resources you do have available. Also, what equipment you have. So if your computers are a bit outdated, it might be time to update. All of that goes to where are you going to need professional help? It is out there. There's a lot of options out there, but it's okay to look for professional help. So the first stage for building your digital presence is going to be your website, and specifically within that, your giving page. There are just a multitude of online giving platforms, and we'll go into what to look for in that in just a moment. Looking at some of your past events, I miss a lot of events that we would have had over the summer. It would have been wonderful to have them, but we can't. So out of those events, which elements can move to a digital format? And we'll go into that. With your annual fund program, any letters you might send, membership drives, things like that, there's great ways to incorporate email solicitations into that annual fund plan. It's a great way to save money at times. It's also a good way to follow up with individuals. It's also as a way to expand your digital presence. Look for social media that will fit your audience. Fit your audience is the key word, because there is a ton of options out there, and your audience is probably going to be in only a handful of them. And then use crowdfunding in a selective environment. And I'll probably stress this several times, but crowdfunding is a way to build excitement for self-contained projects. I'll show you some examples of all of these shortly. So let's start with your organizational website. Almost exclusively, this will be the first place that potential donors go. And so I'm going to use myself I'll use myself here as an example. If I want to see what an organization is doing, I very often will go onto the internet to see what are your open hours, what's your website. I will look at the giving page out of professional curiosity. And if I can't find that information, my second choice is usually going to Facebook. But if I can't find that information readily, very often I'm hesitant to go to one of those organizations. This is an interesting statistic that I found, same QGive blog. 75% of donors are turned off by out-of-date websites. So it is important, it is very important, if you have, say, past events from 2018 or information that is just no longer relevant. If your board list on your website is no longer your board, it's important to keep that up to date. People want to, because it is a reflection of your organization that if you are, if I see a whole bunch of old events, I don't know if you're doing anything new. Another thing, and I brought this, I will often look for an organization's website on my phone. Maybe it's because of being a millennial. Maybe I'm just hooked to my phone, but I'm doing this. And if your website is not mobile friendly, it does make it harder for people to see, to have a good experience on your website. And one final thing that I do want to, I really want to stress is that there's no reason to hide your giving links. So if your organization has a giving page, if you've spent a lot of time setting up a giving page and events and you want to ask for money, make that link to the giving page prominent. So if you go to the IHS website, you'll see at the top bar, there is the contribute button. We certainly don't hide it. It's not a flashing ad banner, but we want people who want to come in and support us, renew membership, whatever they want to do. We want them to have that ability, and we don't want them to have to search around for where that is. So a big step for any organization is finding the right donation platform. And there are a ton. But there's also some really good guides to finding programs that will work for you. QGive has some great blogs about it. This link here is a lot of great questions to ask ahead of time. Capterra is a great website. Capterra.com is a great website for looking at different software options. And I enjoy their reviews. But some of the questions to ask yourself is, what is the purpose of this platform? What do you need it to do? If you are willing to spend the funds, there are online giving platforms that will do giving, membership, constituent record management, event registration. They will keep the records of charitable gift annuities. They'll run different. They'll run some of the different stock options at times. They'll do a multitude of things. They cost money. If you don't need that, if you have, out of 6 items that I listed, I believe, if you only need 2 or 3 of those, then there are some really affordable options. So consider what your fundraising plan involves, and then look for a platform that will work within that. If you're not going to have, if you are in an organization that is very event heavy, if you do a lot of activities and events and you need to record who's coming to those events, then you do want to look for a platform that does ticketing and reservations and records that information, because it'll save you a lot of time and money, because otherwise you'd have to find a second system. So after deciding what you need, what is your budget? There are options for, there are free options. There are options for, very small budget, any size. And, you will lose some functionality at times. A lot of times what you will be priced at will be things like platform fees. You'll be charged, say, a percentage of the credit card, processing fee. You'll be charged often for different premium options like a membership and so forth. So look at what will be the pricing plan and what will work best for you. Customization is an important thing for a giving page because you might have different giving levels. For instance, you might have a giving level named after your founder, or you might have, say, gold level, silver level. You might have special projects or special, say, you might be raising money for a special memorial initiative. If you can customize your page, that will be important. It's important to consider the setup process. Again, I am not the most computer savvy person. So if you ask someone like me who is experienced with fundraising, but not a lot of heavy tech issues, if I have to migrate the data from what, say, IHS has to another system, it's going to take me a long time. But there are other platforms that will do that data migration of your donors, usually for a fee. So look at what that setup process will include, what you have to do, and what they'll do for you. The types of payments, you might only really deal with a couple different types of payments. Credit cards are accepted by, I've not found a platform that doesn't accept all credit cards. It used to be Amex was the tough one. But now Apple Pay is an option. So if you think that you will be accepting Apple Pay, that's something to consider. Whether or not someone can link their banking information to that site. So again, it's what will work best for you. And again, the mobile tablet friendly. I don't make as many gifts online with my phone, but my wife does. If my wife finds an interesting program or something like that, and she wants to support them with, $10 or $20, very often she will use her phone. So, I think it's pretty common that platforms are mobile and tablet friendly, but field test that just to make sure that it works. Beyond that would be the maintenance of a platform. So you have a lot of data in this fundraising platform, and you don't want to lose it. So I'll give you a very quick background. I grew up in New Orleans, and I worked for an institution for a little bit that lost all of its donation records after Hurricane Katrina. Years, decades of information was gone. And post-Katrina, since all the backups were ruined, we had to start from scratch. And we didn't know, aside from the past, big donors, we didn't know who had been a donor 10 years ago, or who, whether someone had an updated address or whatever it was. We lost that data, and it was a huge loss to the organization. So when you're looking for an online platform, consider where is that information backed up. If you need access to that information, is it locally stored? Is it stored on a server across the country or on the other side of the globe? Look at what are the options for tech support, because you might have an issue and you don't want to run into a tech issue that can't be solved by going to the website. When you're expecting gifts to come in, you don't want there to be a lag. And then what is the process for updating the page and the platform? Finally, what are the security features? There's an interesting tidbit. I don't think it was in that QGIve blog, but something that I saw recently, an organization did an A/B test of security for online giving. And giving pages that had a padlock icon, I think you've all seen that, they were judged to be more safe than a giving page that just said your information is secure. And just that little picture made people feel more comfortable, even if it didn't do anything. But people are very aware of their information being out there, on the internet. So it's helpful to know the safety and security features on that platform. I told you this was a long part. So your giving page, it's best if it is simple. That relates to connectivity issues for one, but it's not helpful to get a lot of information from a donor for the giving page. If they're ready to make a gift, a lot of the extraneous questions, a lot of the data that we might all like to see and know about a person, it is not as relevant in that instance. So it's best to keep to contact information, address, phone number, email, and gift information. Anything else, certainly you can ask whatever you want, but it's best to be very aware of, is this going to slow down the gift process? And again, ensure that the gift is secure. Your giving page is a place where you don't have to reiterate your case for support the same way that you would for, say, an annual fund letter. In an annual fund letter, you're spending a page or two explaining, you're making your case for support. On your giving page, though, 9 times out of 10, people who are on your giving page are ready to make the gift. They don't need to be pushed or convinced. So while you do have to make that case for support, it's really just 1 or 2 sentences. It's just a reiteration of what you have already been saying. And then a direct call to action. So, that might be something along the lines of the Tammany County Historical Society exists to preserve and educate people about our shared heritage. Please support our organization so that we can continue in this work. And you might list a couple examples. So it's very short, very quick. But what you can do that you often can't do on a letter is you can reinforce that case on that page with pictures, donor testimonials, anything, videos, because they can tell a great story. If you have a program that is there for school children to learn about your county's history, you can have a picture of those kids enjoying an activity on your grounds, and it makes that case along with those 2 sentences. So be aware of the media options you have. If you do want to expand into different giving options, it's good to be kind of short and sweet about those too, but there's some really cool ones that exist out there. The Adopt an Artifact one is one that it's one that is fairly common in the museum world. I came from education where it wasn't as common, and when I first saw it, I really liked it. So I think it's a great way to raise funds, but you can also ask for specific projects. So if you're an organization that has one annual fund, it's just an operating fund, then you don't have to list a lot of different projects. You can list different giving levels, but you don't have to list anything else. But if you do have different projects, say you have a memorial fund, or you have an exhibits fund, or an education fund, whatever it might be, it's best to keep it limited. So I think less than 10, if I recall, is best, but even better is less than 6. So 6 or 5. So let people know that there are options for giving, but don't make it a comprehensive list, because that will complicate things, and you don't want to get into that. A topic that is really growing in popularity, especially amongst younger donors, is recurring giving. And I think this is my opinion, but I think it's important, if you are looking at a online giving platform, to find one that does have recurring giving options. So Just real quick, a recurring giving is like monthly giving. And that's what I do. I give to my alma mater every month. It is a credit card deduction every month. I don't have to write a check. I don't have to go on their website. And they send me a receipt at the end of the year. And that works for me. And if your donors want to do that, that is wonderful. The other option, if you don't have that on your platform, is you have to either contact that donor every month, or you have to store their credit card information, which I would not advise, and run that credit card. So that runs a risk of security. So the recurring gift option, I think, is excellent. There is also now a popular option to cover processing fees. So let's say the giving platform that you're looking at has a 4% transaction fee. So you can have an option for, if I make a $100 gift to your organization, I can click a button that it charges me $104 to give you the $100, but also pay the transaction fee of the $4. It's very popular because a lot of donors want the original amount they intended, so that $100, to go to your organization. So if that option is available, I think it is often worthwhile to explore. And having a prominent thank you page. This, I do want to state that having a thank you page, you want donors to feel an immediate sense that they are appreciated and you are grateful for their support. And I know you are. But that page is helpful because it's just a reminder that you do appreciate them. But that should not be the end of stewarding those donors. If you do have a donor who makes a $100 gift, even if there's a thank you page, please send them a note, give them a call, shoot them an email, thank them however you can. The thank you page is not there to replace any donor stewardship you are doing. It is there to, as I stated at the beginning, complement the program. What I have included here, I love this option. This is the New York Public Library. And you'll notice all these different options here. What they've done is they've created a symbolic gift program. You'll notice that at the $20 level, it is a new book, and they give a quick 2 sentences about what they're doing. At the $250 level, career resource workshop. Then there's early childhood literacy kits. These are symbolic gifts. This is representative of what the gift can do because it's programs that they're already doing, and this is what the price would be. And what I love about this is they're showing the impact of their work immediately, and they're assigning it at a gift level. And there's really no reason why an organization like a museum can't do something similar. That could be what the cost of an educational field trip would be, or what it costs for your electric bill for a week. It could be any number, but it allows you to show items that their gift will support. So I just wanted to show you all that. I thought it was a really good option. Virtual events. This is honestly, it's becoming a new field. It's growing very rapidly because of the pandemic. And so there's a lot of information just coming out about this. But I think some of the important things to start with are which elements of your existing events can go digital. You cannot bring an entire harvest carnival to a digital format. That would be really neat, but you can't. But there are a lot of elements you can bring. So if you have, let's say, the chair of your board or your museum president wants to make remarks about the importance of the past year for the organization and how it relates to the greater community, they can do so through live streaming. Much like we're doing right now, I am broadcasting via Zoom. that is certainly an option. YouTube, Facebook, and Vimeo all have live streaming options. YouTube and Facebook are free versions. And you can broadcast your message. One of my favorites, because I'm a giant foodie, the Tenement Museum did an entire live stream on pickling, because a lot of immigrants to those tenements or tenement buildings would pickle foods. So they went through the whole process, talked about it the whole time, and viewers can put in questions that people can that the Tenement Museum could answer in real time. And it was excellent. It was I thought it was a wonderful program, and it's something that virtually anybody can do. So there's also a lot of options for online auctions. If you are an organization that has done a lot of silent auctions for, say, a big gala, and you've auctioned off various items, you can still do that online. And I've got an example of it in just a little bit. But I've got a couple links in that resource page for some sites that'll do online auctions. You can actually use eBay for charitable online auctions. They do have a few different rules, but it is an option for nonprofits, and they do offer nonprofit pricing. And you also have, pardon me, you have options for an online store. A lot of organizations already have online stores, but if say you did have a harvest carnival, and part of the way you earned revenue was from the sale of t-shirts or various products, you can still sell those items online. And there are also some good options for online stores that have nonprofit special prices. And again, those are in the resource guide. A lot of people who are looking at virtual events may feel a little intimidated about going to their sponsors about sponsoring an event that is no longer physical. And something that I'd like to say about that is a lot of times businesses will sponsor an event and they know that there's exposure, and you can still offer a lot of exposure to a business based on whatever event you're having. So I think it's important to use the space on your giving page or your social media to recognize your sponsors. And I've seen a lot of organizations do that already. But so I don't think this is a time to shy away from event sponsorships. In fact, I think it's great to reach out to local businesses, especially local restaurants, because right now they're having a tough time. We're all aware of that. And so they're looking for exposure too. And a charitable event, even a virtual one, is a great option for them to get more exposure. So, keep in mind what they need to. And whatever events that you're going to have, whether it's a fundraising event or if it's just if it's just an educational event, let your biggest cheerleaders, your board, your volunteers, everybody, the people who really love you, let them promote that on social media. Raising awareness is going to be free for you, and it's gonna bring out more excitement. So this is one that I just honestly, I just love it. I had to share it with my wife, but this is the gala in a box. I think a lot of us have had experience with the big events, the big galas, things like that. Right now, we can't do that, and it's a shame. But this organization, they did a gala in a box, and what they're offering is you still pay what would be the ticket price. So this would be $75, and you can do a viewing party. So they'll live stream the activities of this event. And with your box, you get cookies, paper crowns, and noisemakers. I think that's a riot. And you get a recipe card, and you can do everything at home, and you can enjoy yourself. But it's a very fun way to remind people that, yeah, you do have to stay home, but you can still have fun. This is from the Indianapolis Public Library Foundation. And so the Friends of the Library, they typically have online, they have book sales, and they'll have some events. Right now they can't do that. What they did was they set up they set up an online auction. And you can see here, some of the things that I really love about this is you have all of these options that are very common for online auctions: children's museum, restaurant gift cards, Colts football. So you can bid on that. You also have this option right here. You can just donate. If all you want to do is you want to give 20 bucks, you have that option. And they have the store option. So anyone who's spent time with me, they know I love books. I will spend hours in bookstores. And I really wanted to go to the book sale. We can't. What I can do is I can buy the, what do they call it? The book bundle. So you get a pack of books. It's in a brown bag. And for $6, what they did was, if you buy them, you show up to their location and they bring out a cart with your stuff. You pick it up. That's it. So what this organization did, what the Library Foundation did, you can donate, you can do the silent auction, or you can do online sales, all right here with one page. And I thought that was a wonderful idea. There's also a lot of organizations that they've been selling items. And again, anyone who knows me, you know what, I'll just fully admit this. I love buying a charity cheese ball. Absolutely love it. Will not deny it. But doing that right now, it's not possible. This organization, Crossnor Strawberries out of North Carolina, they had, what they did to raise money was have people pick strawberries. You know, you go out to their space, pick strawberries, and you pay by however much you pick. You can't do that right now in the pandemic. So what they offered was online purchases of strawberries. And they, as you can see here, you could pre-order your strawberries. They explained why they can't do the U-pick. They gave you a time where you can pick up your strawberries, and they gave you instructions for being safe. So what Crossnor is able to do is they're still able to sell the very thing that raises funds for them, but they're able to do it in a safe way that makes sense for them and their audience. I'm going to move on to email now. Email, as I had said at the beginning, it's not a replacement for an annual fund letter or year-end letter, whatever you might call it. It's there to complement it. And so there are a lot of similarities between the two, but there are some important distinctions that I do want to address. Both of them require a level of personalization. And so especially with email, email can feel very impersonal, and it just feels like you're talking to a computer. So it's important to personalize it in a way like I use Dear Jane versus Dear Donor, or Dear, I'm trying to think of a very grand one, Dear Honored Member, whatever it might be. It's still not going to have the same effect as Dear John or Dear Jane. If you have control over it, the person sending the email should be a real person. That actually, the studies they've done, it does dramatically increase the response rate for online solicitations. So rather than museum@historymuseum.org, it should be john@historymuseum.org, because then it feels like there's an actual person behind that. Email does have to have a specific upfront ask, and you have to show where that money is going to go. And this is something that I'm going to be very careful about saying, but I think this is important to share with you, is email is a great way to, or within email, giving incentives are a great way to motivate your donors. What I do not want this to be is giving incentives are not trinkets. They are not gifts to the donor. This is an incentive to give. Most commonly, this would be a board match. So if you have an organization, let's say a community foundation or a board member or a wealthy donor who will match all donations on one day, that's a giving incentive. If you have a specific goal of raising $10,000 on in one weekend, that's an incentive. It's an incentive to give. So if there are ways to motivate your donors with an incentive, email is a great place to do that. Social media too, but email is a very popular way to do it. So some of the ways that email is different than a letter, less is more for an email. I would often say for a letter that it should be a page or two. For an email, 400 words is very much a maximum. In fact, 250 words is much better. Your readers will skim. It's just in our nature. That's why using bullet points, as you can see here, I've put everything into bullet points. It structures everything so we're reading it. And bolding the part that you want your reader to really focus on, that's important in an email. So that is where you would put information. You would put bullet points for, here is what we are planning to do this year. Here are the bullet points for why we need your support. And in bold text, will you support us this year with a gift of $100? Those are the things you want your audience to read. But again, as with your giving page, pictures, videos, all of these can really build your case. And with an email, it's a great rate of return because, as opposed to a letter, you don't have to pay for printing. And so you can share a lot of information. You can share a lot of pictures and information like videos, and it'll still cost the same. So that is a great way to kind of boost your email. And then I think it's important to look at those emails and not think of it in kind of a universal term like everyone gets the same email. It's helpful to categorize your donors by various areas of giving. So that could be people who have supported a specific area, whether that's, say, educational programming, or maybe they really, really love the sports exhibit you did, or a specific event, or categorizing when they last gave. People actually like being reminded, like, Mr. Smith, you last supported us in November of 2019. In November of 2020, will you renew your support and be able to give an additional gift of $50? That, reminding them of when they last gave, it's a good reminder to renew, but it's also a reminder that you are paying attention to them, and that goes a long way for donors. And no matter what you are doing for online giving, have a follow-up plan. Donors are often motivated to make their gift when they're sent a follow-up message. And the message doesn't have to be email. You can actually send a physical letter and follow it up with email, or you could send an email and follow it up with a phone call or another email. But have a follow-up plan and use it as a gentle reminder that you really are counting on their support. Or ask, do you have any questions about this? Social media is a vast area, and I will be perfectly frank with everyone. I am not on a ton of social media. In fact, my brother, who is 4 years younger than me, he has to explain a lot of different social media to me because he works with teenagers. And I'm too old for a lot of it. I don't get it. But your audience won't be on every form of social media. And there's no reason you have to have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm about out. TikTok, Vimeo, YouTube, all those things. And there's a ton more. There's no reason you have to have all of those. In fact, I like pointing this out. 74% of American internet users are on Facebook. If your audience is mostly on Facebook, or if they're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, the other social media options will just be extra work for you at that point. So it's best to focus on those three. With social media, this is a great way to cross promote items, but your audience will often expect more visual media. This is a great place to share stories from your organization. So if this is the bicentennial for your town, then this is a great time to show some of the documents or information, maybe show pictures from the centennial, and things like that that will gain interest. And this falls into what is called the 80-20 rule for social media. A lot of marketing people use this, and the 80-20 rule is 80% of your posts should be useful to the audience. So let's say IHS has 10 Facebook posts in a week. 8 of those posts, if we're following this, 8 of those posts should be informational. So that could be things like some of the information we've done regarding women's suffrage, upcoming You Are There exhibits. It could be some of the work that we're doing with Madam Walker, the Madam Walker exhibit, or information relating to our Star Jeanette program. Those would be items that we would share that would be useful to the audience. The remaining 2 will be promotional. So those would be things like promoting this webinar or reminding people to make their end of the year gift or renew membership. Because, excuse me, your social media followers, they want content. They want something from you, but there's no reason why you can't also reinforce why you're asking for support and reinforce things and remind people that you exist because you are receiving financial support. So in social media, one of the biggest examples of fundraising is Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday, for anyone who hasn't seen this before, this is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So this year will be December 1st. And this is a way for organizations to have that day of giving after Thanksgiving. Last year in the US, over $500 million was raised one day, 24 hours. And that's only online. There were also gifts made physically and so forth, but the Giving Tuesday organization, they only counted the online gifts. Anyways, one reason why I really think this is something to consider is on Giving Tuesday, donors are primed to give. They're donors, pretty much anyone who's on social media, they are well aware that they will be asked to support organizations on Giving Tuesday. So they are primed to give. And because of that, they're more inclined to actually step up and say, okay, it's Giving Tuesday. You've asked for $25 to support your cause. I'll do it. Again, I'd like to reinforce that this is a great time to use donor challenges. And matches, goals, timeframes, those are great incentives to have for a Giving Tuesday. So if you might have a board member who is, they really want to see more donors come, this is a great way to get them to step up and make a challenge grant. And if you have questions about that, we can talk about that later. So, and something I'd like to mention, one of the things I like to point out about Giving Tuesday, this is a day of giving. And there's no reason why your organization cannot have its own day of giving online. But most organizations work with the Giving Tuesday because, as I mentioned earlier, this is a day where people are ready to give. So this option, or this example, this example is the Boston Children's Museum. And I think frankly, I think it's adorable. What they did was they used Giving Tuesday to find a home for Georgia and Frida, their painted turtles. And because of this, they used it. What they're doing is they're asking for a specific cause, Georgia and Frida, and it has a specific deadline. It has one day, Giving Tuesday, and they're able to use all these pictures of the turtles, and they're building excitement, and they're saying thank you. And I really think it's a great self-contained project for Giving Tuesday. Now, actually, on the note of self-contained project, I'd like to mention crowdfunding. I was looking for a good definition of crowdfunding, and Fundable had what I think is kind of a perfect one. That crowdfunding is a method of funding that allows individuals to utilize their personal networks to raise capital and support their cause or business. Campaign organizers create an online profile to explain their fundraising goals and share their project with friends, family, social networks, etc. So what that definition is saying is individuals are doing a lot of this work. They're using their networks. They're reaching out to people because they care about you and they care about this cause. And this is a great way to build excitement. Now, crowdfunding is often, it's best for self-contained projects. Donors really like to see something with a realistic funding goal and a timeline, and something that's more tangible. So, for instance, if you were to have an organization set up a crowdfunding page on Kickstarter that is looking for $500,000 to preserve their historic structure, and that work were to take place over 3 years, what's going to happen is donors will see that giving bar increase very slowly because it's $500,000. And over 3 years, it's very easy for even some of your most excited supporters to just kind of lose interest. Whereas, let's take that exact same example. If you were to do a Kickstarter project for $25,000 to create a historically accurate garden for that structure, you could post pictures, renderings, drawings, and donors, if that were to take place over 3 to 6 months, donors would have that excitement and they'd know that there's an end goal and they would see that donor bar creep up faster. That is a project that'll be a little more glamorous for crowdfunding. This is a place to use your passionate stakeholders. This is a place to raise awareness. And interestingly, online donors who are 55 to 64 are very active crowdfunders. They've got established networks, they've got friends from work or business, and they are a little more inclined and able to crowdfund. One thing, it really does reflect all online giving, but it is most prominent with crowdfunding. Campaign progress needs to be continually updated. People get excited when they know we're $5,000 closer. Oh, we had two $50 gifts today. We are so close to the goal. You have to keep reinforcing that there is excitement and momentum. So you do have to be on top of this. And I do love that with crowdfunding, you can let your audience, you can let your biggest cheerleaders raise the funds for you. There's the option of doing so independently. And it's a great way to do the work and share that workload. So this is an example that I found that I think it's excellent. This is the Defend Black Memory, Black Museums, and Black Life project, and it is My apologies. I've got to actually lean in a little. It's the Paul Robeson House and the Colored Girls Museum. So what they've done, this project is over, but you can see they raised over $100,000 this year. And you can see some of these gifts. There's $40, $10, $50. So these are pretty typical gifts. These aren't huge $1,000, $5,000 gifts. These are gifts from, everyday, your average people. This is a gift I could make. So one of the things I really love about this is they're showing direct costs. So $6,700 for air purifiers. And then here's what they're going to do with cleaning staff, porch renovations. They are showing exactly where those funds are going. And then they're talking about the whole process and why. I couldn't put everything on here. Yes.
Hey, Bryce, we have about
Yes.
5 more minutes left in the webinar.
Thank you.
Just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. I am just about done. So the other thing I did love about this is they are updating it. They gave a last update. So it's got a video, it's got links to keep supporting this organization, both of them, and it's got a big thank you. So this is a great way to share excitement. So I will speed up just a little bit, but I want to remind everyone that online fundraising enhances and complements the programs you've already created. You don't have to go it alone with this. There are resources available for everyone, and it depending on your experience level, the resources, the funding, you can find outside help. And be aware of what your audience needs. What is their comfort level and what is their connectivity? So with that, I will take any questions. And Tamara, if you wouldn't mind, if there are any questions. Yes.
We did have one question.
Yes, please.
And somebody wanted to know, you had mentioned a place that had specific gift levels and how donation amounts might be used. Can you
Yes.
let us know the name of that place again?
Yeah, that example was from the New York Public Library website. And I'm a big fan of using how they call symbolic gifts. You can call it whatever you want, but it's there to remind you that this $20 is actually going towards something like a new book. So that's the New York Public Library.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So,
Bryce.
of course, if there are any other questions, I'm happy to take them now. And
I'm not seeing any other questions right now, Bryce. But folks can always contact you, right?
Absolutely. So I do want to say thank you, everyone, for being on this this webinar. It has really been a pleasure to share this with you. So I will be sending out the recording link. I will be sending an evaluation link, and I will be sending a resource page with a lot of the different sites that I talked about. If you have any questions for me, any comments about this or HSG, please reach out. Thank you very much and have a wonderful
Thank you,
day.
everyone.
Thank you.